Right, so we are back with another video. I'm going to teach you how to create natural texture in straight hair. I am using the Babyliss Pro Titanium wand or chopstick. I forgot exactly what it's called, but you can see the name on the box right there. Basically, it's like a straight stick and it allows you to just create those nice ringlet curls. And I actually make a game decision in the midway in the middle of this video, and you'll see that pretty soon. But for right now, I am sectioning the hair off. This is the same mannequin used to do the L'Oreal color versus the rust color. So that's why you can see a slightly difference in tones on both sides. If you want to see the long tutorial of that, that's also up on the channel on my behind the scene look. Now, I'm also working on the round of the head, taking off small sections towards the front. And you don't see this on camera, but I have a mirror in front, so I kind of am looking at the hair as I go so that I understand exactly what I wanted to do. And with creating texture, you want to make sure things are kind of inorganic as possible. I mean, that leads for a more natural look. As you can see, I just wind it up and I stretch the curl as it cools so that it can be elongated and you don't really have those Shirley Temple curls. Another thing that you may notice is my hand is moving in a clockwise direction. So as I am turning around the barrel, my hand is kind of making a half turn. So it's not a flat curl. So the hair is actually winding up almost like a rope, which gives it that nice ringlet curl that you would find in naturally curly texture. You just stretch those ends a little bit. Now, I know a lot of things that people say sometimes would be to leave the ends out so you have straight pieces because it looks more modern. But to me, I just don't like that aesthetic. To me, it reminds me of a perm that's not done completely well. Like it's what they call fish hooks. So I like to curl everything, and what I do is instead I just stretch that curl from the end. That way that curl isn't completely formed all the way around, but at least it is more uniformed as opposed to just having like straight ends. To me, it just doesn't look aesthetically pleasing. So just curl all the hair and just stretch it out for a more modern look. There's no special tips to this. I think my heat is set at 350 if I'm not mistaken, so it doesn't really have to be hot. Like I said, you want it to be kind of organic. It's not crispy. There is a heat protectant that was sprayed in there. For this particular one, I used the TG Hot Iron Spray. I also used that in another video on the channel, so if you want to know more about that, you can look at one of those videos. I think I talk more about that. So this is where I make my game time decision and I decide, hey, I want to use my Marcel iron. So now I'm using these two different types of curls to create an inorganic, natural looking texture. And it's basically just layering it. I'm looking at the hair. I'm using diagonal back sections. And I am just pulling the hair straight. And that's some good Marcel iron work there. You just want to make sure that you keep the hair moving. See how I pull towards the end just to stretch out that curl? Because you don't want it too curly. Turn, twist, click, 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 click. Let it heat up a little bit and you just kind of pull and stretch that out. And I'm just kind of looking at it in the mirror, exactly seeing where these bigger curls are going to fall in relation to the shorter curls. Yeah. And I think this Marcel iron is a 3/4 inch, 3/4, yeah, 3/4 inch Marcel iron. So you can use that. If you are unfamiliar with Marcel irons or how to use them, I'm sure a regular spring iron would work just as well. I just find that the Marcel irons give you a little bit more control. You have the option to just kind of release that Marcel iron when necessary, whereas sometimes with the spring irons, it's kind of trapped in there, so it kind of grips the hair and grabs more. I feel like I have more of a flow with the Marcel irons. So it's definitely something that you want to practice with. And plus, it just looks really cool when you are in a salon and you're using Marcel iron. It's like, wow, it's almost like a dying art form. And to be able to sit down there and use that and create this nice, beautiful texture just gives you that much more oomph. It's like lets people know that, hey, you're serious and you know what you're doing and you studied your craft. So I'm just going to be moving back and forth between the two irons, and this is how you create. You see how that nice curl right there? It's just really, and you just stretch it a little bit. So that's been really good. And this is kind of my Sunday routine. Sometimes my weekend routine. When I have some time off, I just like to sit down there and create. I talked about this in my other video, but for those of you who are a little bit in a dry spell in your salon or just a dry spell in your career in general, just get back to playing around with your mannequin. Grab a mannequin head if you don't have somebody to work on or whatever, and just start working on your craft, working on your tools. I talked about this before, but I was saying that, sometimes we all feel disconnected. And as artists, the reason that you feel disconnected is probably because you're not creating. And so if you don't have anybody to create on, your mannequins are always ready to go whatever day, whatever time, and just play around. I think that helps you to connect back to the spirit. And that's part of what this channel is all about, too, is just learning to connect with your craft, connect with your mind, your spirit, your body, and put your work out there. So I am using minimal clips, minimal parting. I just want everything to hang, of course. There's no need to cool or do any of that stuff because you just kind of want it to be lived in. And I think a lot of times we just get caught up in trying to create these perfect curls. I think a lot of the times people just don't want to touch a curl or don't want to thing after they curl it, or they're scared to brush it, or they're scared to run their fingers through. Hair has memory, so once you break those bonds in the hair with either heat or water, like doing a wet set, those disulfide bonds, that's a little Cosmo word for you guys out there or students who are still learning. Once you break those bonds, the hair, it's there and it doesn't change until those bonds get broken again, which means in this case, until you wet it, or sometimes if you reheat it. Although most of the time, if you reheat it, it won't really take too much because the memory is there from the previous one. So in order to break these bonds, you would have to wet it down for it to revert back to whatever its natural texture is, which is straight. If your natural texture is curly and your hair is, the bonds are broken to make it straighter, i.e. either heat styling or through a chemical process. Chemical process is permanent when you're dealing with relaxer, but if you're using just a flat iron and a straightener, once you introduce moisture back into the hair, it will revert back to its natural texture, which is curly. So just keep that in mind. Once you curl that hair, the hair is going to remain curled until something comes along and break it, which would be water. So don't use products that are too liquidy or contains too much water, because that's going to like really get rid of that curl. And I'm just working on the back of the head using diagonal back sections there as well. So yeah, the only thing that would happen with curls, just to go back to what we were talking about, is that the curl would just continue to elongate, but that's because of gravity. So the curls will what they call drop sometimes, what you hear, but it will continue to just drop until it'll become probably like the soft wave eventually over time, not like right away, but over time. Of course, if you use hairspray and different things to kind of preserve it, it lasts a little bit longer. And of course, this video is sped up, double speed. So the whole process normally I would think would take about 30 minutes just because I'm using such little sections. And of course, I'm listening to my music. If this wasn't YouTube, I wish I can play what I was listening to so that we can all groove to the same thing. But instead, you're going to have to listen to my voice, which hopefully is pleasant enough. Because, with copyright and licensing and all that stuff, I didn't even want to take the chance of putting music to any of the videos. But if you want to see a sample of some of it, it is on my IG on JMT Hair. And you can also watch it on TikTok at JSN Hair on TikTok. These same videos, just shortened big time. More for like promotional purposes are on there, but they have music set to them, so you kind of got an idea of what I'm listening to at the time. And this kind of style does take a while. It takes a while because you're using such small strands, especially when you're using that chopstick. So I call it a chopstick, but if you have somebody with naturally curly texture, that is a good tool to keep in your toolbox because there's sometimes that curl is going to be a little bit flat, or if you want to just define it a little bit more, that's a good tool to use within naturally curly textures just to give it some more definition and some more oomph. Not that you would use it on the entire head, but you just pull out a couple of strands, a couple of pieces here and there just to create more interest in the hairstyle. And I'm only going to curl half of the head. Well, like do a walkthrough because it's pretty much repetitive, you know? So you can imagine in real time how long this will take. Just if I did the whole video showing me curling the entire head. And I just wanted to get a close-up on that Marcel iron work. Just for those of you who are struggling with Marcel irons, and check the ends. You see how that's still curled, but it's not straight? That's exactly what I'm talking about. So there's a way to still curl that hair and give it a little something without making it look like a Shirley Temple curl, or without making it look like, fish hooks, like they just had a bad perm. And I don't know which side this is that I'm curling. I think this might be the Rusk side that I was doing. The only thing to note that when you're on the opposite side of the head, just pay attention to the way that the hair is curling. So you're curling the hair away from the face. So on this side of the head, which would be the right side, my wand is pointing upwards. So on the other side of the head, which would be the left side, my wand is pointing down so that the curls can all be kind of uniform. And it framed the face in the proper way. Otherwise, you'd have some curling in and some curling out, and it will look like a big S pattern. But in order to kind of frame the face properly, you have to be conscious of which way the curls are turning. If you want to all over just wild texture, you can just also alternate the curls as well. Alternate the directions of each curl, and it'll kind of create more volume. In this case, I just wanted more relaxed volume, looser texture, looser curl, but still with a lot of body. And these things are best to do in front of the mirror. So make sure that you're looking in front of your mirror anytime that you're doing these curls. So with the magic of editing, it will now be done. And both sides of the head are curled. If only it can be like that in real life, right? So, like I was saying, once the head is all curled, it looks kind of wonky right now. But what I'm using now is the Cocoa Dew by Mizani, my favorite product for curly hair, and 25 Miracle Milk oil. It's a very nice light oil. Never touch curly hair, whether it's naturally curly or created curls, with dry hands. My hands are usually dry, so I put a little oil on my hand, massage it in like lotion, and now I can begin to manipulate the hair and just start to break up some of those curls. What you want to do with curl, and then I'm spraying that, it's like a curl restyling form, so it's just a mist. I just mist it over. You don't want it to be too wet. Remember that the water or anything that's going to be too wet is going to start to make those curls fall out completely. And if you're doing this on a client, just have them hold their head back, kind of shake the hands, run some of that oil through it, kind of break up some of those curls with your finger, scrunch. If it's a mannequin, you could just kind of like, what I like to do, just take the mannequin and just swing it back and forth so just those curls can loosen up. And that's the finish. You can use a little hairspray, nice little gloss. Just touch those ends, break it up with the fingers, and just manipulate it. Just look in the mirror and just see whatever looks good to you. And then I'll have a final look for you. Again, if you're looking for a hairstylist, I am in the North Jersey area. You can definitely DM me on JMT Hair on Instagram and JSN Hair on TikTok. And like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely like the video. Click that thumbs up button and subscribe so that you know when I put something new out. And that's it, folks. Thank you.